So just to kind of step back into where you're at, something that I felt prompted, I often will ask people is, if you're going to highlight two or three people in your experience as a child and a young person, uh, can you think of a couple of individuals in the congregation that you could look back and say, because this person did that, this is what it did to me?
Absolutely. Number one, a man by the name of Albert Hollingshead. Albert was a World War II veteran in the church in Moss Bluff, Louisiana. Albert showed up to the church every single morning at 4:30 to pray. Every morning, and he would walk and he would touch every single pew, and he would pray for every person that he could think of that sat on that pew. He'd spend time praying. And as a high schooler, I got so enamored with that because it was so rare. It was something you definitely did not ever see. And so I asked him about it, and he was like, "Well,
How old is this man at this point?
oh, he's probably in his 80s. He's in his 80s doing this." Um, and and he didn't. He was like, "Well, I really can't tell you about it. You just have to come experience it." And I was like, "4:30?" He was like, 4:30? It's like, "Okay, I'll be there." And so probably the second half of my junior year in high school, my entire year of my senior year, every Monday through Friday, I met him at the church, and I just followed him. He'd touch a pew, and I'd touch a pew. He'd pray for people, and I'd pray for people. And it was through that example that I learned things like the value of knowing people's names, the value of action. You know, it's amazing whenever you start praying for people and you start calling their names, it changes how you think about them in so many different ways. And that has carried on even to like today, like on my phone, and I'll probably mention this in the second service. I've got a 40-page prayer list on my phone. It takes me a good hour to go through. If somebody asks me to be on my prayer list, I take it very serious. I put them on the prayer list because he taught me the value of prayer. It was something over 20 years ago, but it is still stuck with me, that calling people's names out in prayer and actually being intentional about it, it really does make a difference.
So, did he ever tell you what brought that to his mind? Because I've never heard anybody doing that specific thing. Never heard of that level of intensity. Did he ever tell you what birthed that?
No, but he was just a man who truly loved people. He, if you were to go to the barber shop, there's an old barber shop in Moss Bluff. His photo's hanging on the wall because everybody loved that man because that man loved everybody. And he, if you walked into his presence, he made you feel like $1,000,000. You're the only person in the room. And I think that it was just a genuine love that he had for people. And that was even born out of his genuine love for his country. World War II veteran. If he knew of a veteran who had passed away, whether he knew him or not, he was at the funeral. And that was even something that I had learned from him. Weddings optional, funerals mandatory. And it's just having a love for people and widening your heart for others. And so that was probably one of the biggest things I learned from him.
Wow. So that is quite exceptional. Is there a second person that comes to mind?
Yeah, my dad. My dad is an accountant by trade. He worked for the school board for many years. My dad's Mr. Consistent. Well, like I say, wakes up the same time every morning. He worked 2 jobs whenever I was a kid. Put us through school and all kinds of, like, he's been absolutely amazing. Very consistent. Doesn't talk a lot, but whenever he does speak, his words matter. I talk way more than he does. but he taught me just how to be consistent. And that is something that I've been able to carry. Because, there's so many fads. And one of the consistent things that my dad does is he reads his Bible every single day, and he has a stack of note cards. My dad probably knows the Bible, in my opinion, better than anyone I've ever met before, because he has literally gone verse by verse and extracted things and cross-reference. He has a massive stack of note cards and he's just cross-referenced things. And I was like, hey, Dad, are you ever going to share those with anybody? He's like, nobody will be able to read them. But every time that I'm at his house or I leave, he'll always be like, don't forget to stay on your knees. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's like, stay in the Word. Yes, sir. And just that consistency is an anchor and a value. So prayer and consistency are two values that I've learned.
It almost seems, if you take that, it's almost like you've had a living manifestation of the Word and the Spirit. Those are two necessary things to ground you. How long have you been in New York?
We've been there 8 years, and that is so true. You don't have to be in Christianity very long to learn that there's a ton of fads. They come and they go. There's all kinds of evangelism fads. There's all kinds of church fads. They just come and go. But to your point, the things that will never pass away is spirit and truth. Those are two things that God has anchored to his church that just don't change. One of the scriptures that God gave me, like just probably in the last couple of years that I've just anchored myself to, is it's not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. And truly learning not just to be Spirit-filled, but Spirit-led. But the only way I can truly be Spirit-led is if I open up my ears and hear what the Spirit is saying.